Welcome to the commentary booth where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play by play commentator Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by the host of the Maps And Graps podcast, who lists their favourite movie as Funny Girl and favourite TV show as Doctor Who. Welcome to the show, Lyric Swinton.
Hi, super happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. I think you are the perfect guest to discuss The Acolyte.
Yes, I'm super excited.
So this week we're venturing into deep space and traveling back in time to the High Republic era of Star Wars, reviewing the opening 2 episodes of The Acolyte. Set at the end of the Star Wars franchise's High Republic era, which is approximately 100 years before Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The series follows an investigation into a shocking crime spree that pits a respected Jedi Master against a dangerous warrior from his past. And then as clues emerge, we travel down a dark path where sinister forces reveal all is not what it seems. The series has been created by Leslie Headland, the first gay woman to create and direct a Star Wars project, and her wife Rebecca Henderson plays a recurring role as a Jedi Master. And then the series is also in the lead role has Amandla Stenberg as Osha and May Anasaya, the first woman of color and gay woman to lead a Star Wars project. So I thought that was a really cool dynamic change for the series, even though overall Star Wars has always been about strong, powerful female characters. What did you
Absolutely,
think
yeah.
of the show so far?
Yeah, so I will say, I did not do any research into it before I watched it. I missed like the last like the last Star Wars series on Disney Plus I've watched all the way through was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I've been like behind on everything. I'm terrible. But I was glad when you said the Acolyte, because I said this is going to hold me accountable. I'm finally going to be held accountable. Finally going to be held accountable. I was really pleased. I think that I've been following Amandla Steinberg's career for quite some time now, and so it's always good to see her. I feel like she's really flexing her muscle of how good she is in this role, and I mean, just playing two characters is obviously incredible. Um, and I think also just finding out the backstory of one, how this series came to be, like, the writers and, like, the diversity of the cast is great. And then also just, I think the first thing that I noticed and I think I tweeted it, I was like, the special effects on this show are incredible.
Mhm.
Like, I think that it looks absolutely incredible. The prosthetic makeup is great. Like, everything just seems really, really good. And I think sometimes the Disney Plus shows, I think, can be a little bit hit or miss when it comes into the graphics department. Sometimes I feel like they overshoot it and do a little too much. Sometimes I feel like it doesn't look realistic enough. But this one, I think it looks really great. And I think that the story is pretty unique too. I think we've seen like a lot of, like, cool like villains, bounty hunters, and things throughout the series, but they've typically been like, male presenting. So it's really cool to see, like, a woman, particularly a woman of color, take up that mantle. So I was really excited, really, really pleased by what I saw so far.
Yeah, me too. I think the idea of I think they've actually used real sets for this rather
Mhm.
than filming in the volume, which they kind of did for those first couple of Star Wars series, which is fine for what it is, but it also definitely sort of leaves a little bit to be desired in terms of how it presents. Like sometimes it does give off that, oh, this is just a green screen fake
Yeah.
feeling, whereas the sets, they feel like they're in these places. And I did enjoy that because we've gone back 100 years in the Star Wars timeline. We're away from the Skywalkers finally,
Yes, definitely.
because that's always been my big issue with Star Wars and the series. Like it's set in this giant space universe, yet we sometimes always come back to these like 5 key people. It's like,
I feel like part of it is because, I've struggled with this too, because, like, I think that they failed. I don't even call it failed, but I think, like, obviously a lot of fans, Star Wars fans, are stuck in their ways. It's a lot, almost kind of like wrestling fans, of just a lot of people are just very stuck in their ways. Like, they grew up on like, the original movies. That's their thing. That's Star Wars to them. And I think like, expanding a universe that is already so beloved. We're seeing it just about everywhere. Wrestling, Doctor Who, everything. When you expand universes that are so beloved and so like ingrained in the culture, a lot of times people don't take it well. And I think a lot of it is, really people are sometimes scared to try new things, which Hayes and definitely their prerogative. And I think specifically with Star Wars is in the last few years we've seen a lot of new stories introduced, and like, but I'm not sure if we've seen like what is that one thing that they're going to go all in on and bring Star Wars back to like theaters as films, like past the Skywalker saga. So I think it's such an interesting dichotomy, because I think that they really identified a lot of cool stories, like with some of these series that I would love to see explored further. But I'm not sure if they're like brave enough to really go all in and say like, okay, we are officially off of the Skywalker saga. But this is a great start.
Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem if the movies, they stayed in that Skywalker saga
Yeah,
era, but I feel like these TV shows like Disney they have control over everything. It's on their own platform, so they can get as crazy as they want. Like, people will watch it
absolutely,
whether they enjoy
absolutely.
it.
I also think too of just like with the Skywalker saga, as much as I love it, like how much more is there to say? Like how
Mhm.
much more? And like you said, Star Wars is this huge, expansive, gigantic universe. You know, Luke is dead, Leia's dead, Obi-Wan's dead, Vader's dead. Like literally, Han Solo's dead. Like all of the original. So like we have to move forward. Like we just have to at some point.
Yep. And I think with this series, it's done a good job of that, even though it's gone back in time. It is sort of
Yeah,
giving us a path to go down new directions with the sort of more shinobi kung fu style that this show has. I really enjoyed that part of the series so far.
yeah. I think too of just I think that women as Jedi's, in that verse have been a little bit underexplored. I think like especially like with how they did it and the Skywalker saga, towards the end, like I feel like it was just rushed. Like, Leia was actually a Jedi and she was training. Like, like when, like when did this happen? So it's really cool to kind of like see from like the beginning, like of like especially these two sisters. Obviously they both are powerful in their own right. And yeah, so that's pretty cool to like see it from like another lens of, and obviously like I wouldn't exactly call them Jedis, but just like just exploring like those capabilities. And like I said, I do want to say I haven't seen Andor, and what's the other one? um what's the other one? I forgot.
Oh,
um came after Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think there's been two Star Wars series descent. Um,
uh, um,
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. Yeah, that's it.
Yes. So I haven't seen those two, but I've seen everything from Obi-Wan Kenobi and before. So
Okay.
I do need to do. That's my homework the rest of the week.
Andor, you definitely need to go back and watch. That was
I've heard so many amazing things
fantastic.
about Andor. Yeah, I heard a lot of great things about Andor.
And I feel like this series, The Acolyte, has taken sort of some inspiration from that with the mystery aesthetic of we're not quite sure what's happening here, and we're getting drip fed little bits and pieces of
Hmm.
the story, which is something I really enjoyed about this. And I love the mystery of like it seems like the Jedi are not as innocent as they may initially seem. They're
Yeah,
very sort of like a powerful religious group, but they're also kind of space cops.
I enjoyed that too. I think especially honestly, I to be quite honest, I had to start over the episode because I got like I think 10 minutes in. I was like, "Am I watching the right thing?" Just because like I loved how like they started off of just how I think we always over glorify the Jedi's are on the side of good, and so it was very interesting the perspective, like like they might not be as great as they could be, and like obviously they were in Osha's face, and like I think just the mystery and just like wait, was she supposed to be here? And I think also a lot that plays into that is the marketing, like they didn't reveal that there's technically two of them.
Hmm.
You had to really watch the show for that. So so I think that that was really cool because I wouldn't have been able to gather that from just reading like the summary that they had. So I think that it was very a lot of mystery, and I think even after the first two episodes, even though some questions have been answered, I think that there's even more questions than before, which is really cool. I think there's a lot of suspense going for it.
Yeah, I definitely finished these 2 episodes eager to see the rest of the series, which is a great sign so far. Now we just gotta hope they can continue that momentum forward.
Absolutely. Do you know, is this one going to be 6 or 8 episodes? Do you know?
I believe it's 8 or 9.
Oh wow, we're doing well.
I knew it was more than 6.
I think I do think that there's a larger conversation that we need to be having about Disney just taking control of everybody's universe and giving us 8 episodes. Like, as a Doctor Who fan, an 8 episode Doctor Who season is insane. It's kind
That's
of
very
crazy.
short.
It's crazy when you think about how long. You used to have almost like a what, nearly a 20 episode season of 40, 50, 55 minute episodes. But that's a whole nother soapbox tangent. But continue.
Oh, I've had this debate with some people before about Star Wars and, Marvel series getting only 6 episodes. It's not long enough for a show like this.
Yeah, I think especially if I think that when you do it so short, I think you hinge. I think not hinge. I think you kind of shorten a show's potential. And I think that when I hear 6, 8 episode season, I'm thinking limited series. Like, I'm not thinking of this potentially having anything like a second season or thing like that. Just because like it's short, like it doesn't. It's as great as the writing could be and things of that nature. I think of X-Men 97 as a great example of there's only but so much that you can say in 8 episodes with with such limited time. And I also think that it goes back to what we were saying before, for Star Wars to really move out of this era, move into this next chapter, and outside of the Skywalker saga. I don't think that 8 episode seasons on Disney Plus is going to help making people believe that we're in this new era. Like, I think like it takes time, it takes investment. Like, as you can see, like in the background, there's my Millennium Falcon on the wall. um, but yeah, I think it's getting annoying at this point. I would say, of like these short seasons, because like we're already 2 episodes down.
Mhm.
We're already 2 episodes in, and like there's so much to do. And I do think that they're going to wrap up these plot lines by the end, but I think a lot. I think that they're not giving enough to their stories. I think they handicap them like in advance in a lot of ways.
Yep. Especially with a story like this, which is this sort of mystery, almost spy thriller that these people investigating this crime spree. And we've already heard them talk about, uh, May was after 4 Jedi in particular. We're
Yeah,
2 episodes in, we've already knocked out 2 of them. We knocked out 1 in the first 3 minutes, 4 minutes before the
absolutely.
opening credits.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things of just, and I've noticed what happens with a lot of these Disney Plus shows. Just from watching Marvel, Doctor Who is still kind of like out, a question mark right now because they just moved over there. But if you look at Marvel, you look at Star Wars, it's like they go through this, like you'll have these packed first and second episode, and then like it feels like these middle episodes could feel kind of like fillerish, and
Mhm.
then like the last 3 episodes they're gonna make like this full jump. And I just feel, and then they're gonna pack everything in, like like they're just gonna pack all these like plot twists. And I
All the
understand like
cameos and everying are in the last couple of
exactly,
episodes.
and I know you want to pop your viewers, right? Like I understand, like, but I think that there's a way to do that, with an extended time frame. And I think also with everything being so readily available on streaming, I think that's one of my arguments about the bear right now, of just, if something is good, like let's stretch it out, like like that, let's stretch it out. And I think that it just goes back to like the modern time attention span just seems to be so short. And I think a lot of these production companies are feeding into that, and honestly are setting that standard. And I think that long term for the future of media, I'm not trying to be like a Debbie Downer here, but like the shortening and shortening and like making minimizing like media, we need to like be kind of worried about this. Just because even like X-Men '97, like I said, fantastic, but it could have been longer. You
Oh
know, it
yeah.
could have been longer. If like I felt like imagine that could have been like a two-parter. Like this could have just been like the first half of the series. Let's go like a summer finale, and then come back in the fall with a full lineup. And that's the in the original season that would have been like one full season itself. Like 2 seasons is one.
Yep.
But I understand like they got to make their money, but I didn't mean to go on that tangent, but the length of things is starting to really annoy me when it comes to these shows.
Yeah, well, yeah, I look back at like the original sort of X-Men series and shows like that. They were like 24 episode, half hour
I mean,
episode
yeah,
seasons. And it's like, cool. Whereas now it's 6 for an entire season. Very
literally.
short.
Netflix is doing the same thing too. I'm a Bridgerton fan, and like they were like part one of season one. I was like, okay, cool. 4 episodes.
Yeah, that's not
Four episodes.
that's
Like
tiny. That's
what?
nothing.
4 episodes is part one, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna give you the second part a month later. Like, are you kidding me?
Yep. And that's like even across wrestling too, we're seeing people complain about the 4-hour AEW pay-per-views, and then you watch the WWE pay-per-views and they're 3 hours, but there's maybe an hour of actual in-ring wrestling and stuff like that. It's like, oh,
And I think it all does come to a taste perspective. Everybody likes their different things, but for me, like one, I value in ring wrestling, and also I think this particularly when it comes to AEW, just at the end of the day, they're not on a streaming model yet, and they've upped their pay per view schedule to what I think 9, 10 shows a year,
mhm.
and they're still charging full price for them. And honestly, if I'm paying $50, of 50 American dollars, once a month or every other month, yeah, I want it all.
Yeah, pack that out for me.
Like
Pack that out.
I want it all. Like I understand. Like WWE pay per views, you're paying at least in America, you're paying a flat fee of $5 a month. You get their whole library plus a whole bunch of other channels too. Like so if a PLE is what 2 hours with 30, 20 minutes of wrestling, okay, cool. You didn't lose anything.
Yep.
But if you're paying $50 and an AEW pay per view is 2.5 hours with 4 matches, yeah, I'm riding. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I'd be
ride
very
it.
angry at that too.
Yeah. So I think it's also one of those things. Maybe, and I do attribute a lot of it to streaming. Because you have all of these big blockbuster franchises now all on one platform. So you have Marvel, you have Star Wars, you have Doctor Who, you have all of these, you have the
All the
regular
Pixar
just
movies.
the Pixar, Disney, and so everybody is now pulling from this same bucket. Everybody's trying to use the same sets, and everybody's like, and I guess like this is how sharing works, and that's why the prices keep going up every other month,
Mhm.
which is a whole nother conversation. But I think that that's also the thing too of should one mouse hold that much power? um, that's a much bigger like even down to the point where now I think a lot of British fans have talked about their being upset about this, which I think that they're completely valid. Of now, Doctor Who is built around the American schedule rather than it's not primetime television in Britain anymore.
Okay,
So
yep.
it's now airing at midnight, so it can air at 7 o'clock here, 7 p.m. here, which is insane when you think it's a British show.
Yeah, that is a
But
bit
at the end
weird.
of the day, the mouse wants what the mouse wants.
Yep. Yeah, Disney Plus here in Australia is crazy good value because we get Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, all of the Hulu stuff. So the Bear is on there,
Yeah.
Doctor Who is on there. It's like if you're gonna have one streaming platform, Disney's probably the way to go for
No, it's the
Australians.
must. It's the must at this point because they've started to integrate it with Hulu here too. Like, but you do have to. Like it is. If you like me, I don't like ads. I'm not gonna lie. So
Yeah, no.
I do pay a little bit extra for no ads, just because like I hate getting into a series and then like I get this disruption about like a soap commercial. Like I think that just it just throws me off. But
Especially
yeah,
because those streaming shows aren't designed with ads in mind. So like an ad could
no,
just pop up like in the middle of a sentence and you're like, "Oh,
I think also that's a really great conversation too. Like I hate to get on this tangent, but we did this current television, like especially streaming television, they're not designed for commercials. They're not like even like the scene cuts and like how the transitions, they're not designed to with commercials in mind. Like they're not in design in mind for breaks, which I think is fascinating. But is a money ploy in and of itself, because if you interrupt somebody's episodes long enough, they're going to eventually say, you know what, fine, I'll just pay for ad free, and I'm
mhm,
one of those people. So
yep." Yeah, I just got the email from Amazon like, "Hey, we're doing ads now. So for an extra $2, you can get rid of ads." I was like, "Oh, damn it. I guess I'm gonna do that."
ah, I paid it. I did too. I was just like, I'm so ashamed of myself right now. Like I'm so ashamed of myself right now. But it's just once you get started, like I started doing YouTube Premium, and I can never go
Oh,
back.
you can't go back. Once you do that, you can't
You
go
can
back.
never once you get YouTube Premium, like especially like I use YouTube a lot for like classic wrestling, like it's like the 80s, 90s, 80s, 90s, all Japan. I'm like, no, I don't want ads in the middle of my Masawa Kawada match. Like, no,
Mhm.
I'm not looking for that. So
Yep, they get
yeah.
you that free trial and you're instantly hooked. Like, "Oh, great. Can't go back now."
They really did hook me with that free trial. I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna continue this afterwards. And like 2 days in, I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done.
Are you a trading card collector or a fan of Australian pro wrestling? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on the limited edition Australian wrestling cards. Each set includes 50 packs of 10 cards, including some of the country's top wrestling talents like Robbie Eagles, Shane Haste, Madison Eagles, Hartley Jackson, and they have Shaza McKenzie listed, although she is not a favorite. The velocities, and a lot more. There's wrestlers, referees, announcers, commentators that are featured, giving you a full appreciation of the Australian independent scene. The cards sold out a lot faster because cards are hot right now, I'll tell you. But you can order your Australian wrestling cards now at Pario Magazine. That's PARIO magazine.com.au/AUSWRES cards. Follow Australian Wrestling Cards on social media at AusResCards for updates. Join the hundreds of fans who have already discovered the excitement of Australian wrestling cards.
So then with Star Wars, we'll go back to Star Wars, get back to the
Yes, yes, back to Star Wars.
um, I mentioned sort of the, uh, black female character, the,
Yeah.
gay character, gay actor playing the character, and, the idea of the strong woman as the lead role. How did you find that as a person of color yourself?
I thought it was great. Truly, and I think honestly, I've just always just respected. Like I said, I've respected Amandla for a really long time. Probably since she was Rue in Hunger Games. Like because I was obsessed with Hunger Games when I was in middle school. Read all the books and like used to go to the movies, and I had all of my T-shirts. I had a Rue T-shirt. It's probably laying around here somehow. Um, but yeah, like so I've been following her career for a long time, and I think it's just really cool because I grew up with a lot of really nerdy fan interest, like Star Wars, like Doctor Who, like Marvel, like all those different things, and I never really saw myself represented, and I think that was always something that was pretty awkward, and so to see it's like I have a goddaughter and she's 7, and so it's really cool because when I was growing up I didn't really have those things, but like now like those are some things that I get to do with her. Like those are things I get to do with her. Like even for example, like the Mandalorian, like she loves Baby Yoda. So
Mhm.
being able to show her like Mercedes's character, that's super cool, because I didn't really see that, when I was growing up. I was a kid. And so like being able to have that representation, I think is really cool. And I love it because I think it's going to make it so much easier for kids like me, for Black girls, just for just people of color, period, for queer folks to be that next generation of Star Wars fans, especially like if this franchise is going to grow and continue to expand into a universe, it's going to have to look like all of us, and I think it's starting to. And so it's just really cool to finally see like so many of like the properties that, even like with Doctor Who right now, like and Ncuti having just like a great run as the Doctor, is just really wild to see. Like even like I look 10 years from now, like when I was in like high school versus now, it's just a whole different lens of all of these properties now just being a lot more inclusive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very diverse cast overall, with Amandla Lee Jung-jae as Sol, her sort of
Mm-hmm.
mentor in his first English speaking role, which is very interesting. We also
What,
got,
seriously?
yeah, so his past roles were obviously the main one being Squid Game, but this was his first English speaking role. He
He killed it. Yeah,
specifically learned English for this role.
he's been killing it. And I knew I recognized that face. It was from Squid Game. That makes so much sense, because I was just like, I recognize this face, but I feel like, especially around the pandemic, so many shows started coming out, and like I think I've binge watched so many things that I'm starting to forget some of the things that I binge watched, and like I forgot Squid Game was a thing. Like it was like the biggest thing I think in the world for a minute, and then hey, I don't even know. So like even a second season out, I don't know.
Not yet. It's coming, but it's not out yet.
Oh,
So
right.
I'm very keen for season 2.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, well, I'll be watching that. I just didn't think of it again until I was watching the shows. Like that face looks so familiar.
Yep. I thought there was a couple of times where I thought his line delivery was a bit sort of wooden, but then when I found out that this was his first English speaking role, I was like, okay, you can be forgiven for that. That's totally understandable.
Definitely.
And then we also got a tease at the end for a Jedi Wookiee as well. I was very keen for that.
Oh my gosh. I loved it. I thought it looked like it reminded me of, wow, my brain is blanking. Second sequel movie. Second sequel movie.
Oh, jeez.
Second sequel
Episode
movie.
8.
Oh, it would be episode 7. No, I'm stupid. Episode 5. Episode 5. Episode 5. A New Hope. Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yep.
That's what it reminded me of. Return of the Jedi. You know how they start off. Not how they start off, but more so like how they end. That's what it reminded me of. But the Wookiee, I'm super excited. Like I'm just super excited. Like it's very few characters in Star Wars. I feel like we've seen just a little bit of everything, all types of creatures that get me as excited as a Wookiee. But it's up there for me.
To then give a Wookiee a lightsaber, I'm like, yep, cool. Sign me up for that.
I popped so loud. Like I think I sat straight up. I said, "Does the Wookiee have a lightsaber?" Like this is what I'm talking about.
Yep.
This is the content that I'm here to see.
I've also seen teasers of there's apparently some new lightsaber type weapons in this season as well. There's a lightsaber whip. That sounds pretty hectic. And they've said there's another one that's even crazier, but they haven't hinted to what it is yet.
You know what? That makes so much sense, because like you said, it's interesting because we're 100 years before episode 1. So like I'm excited to see these weapons, because that means that whatever it was so crazy it got outlawed. By the time like whatever it was so crazy, like they were like, no, like they can do just about anything else, but not this.
Yeah. You can have a sword and that's all. Nothing crazy.
And I think also we kind of like delved into that in like the last few trilogy films, like with Kylo Ren, of just kind of like playing with the design, of the traditional lightsaber. And I think like I will say I do think that, like I said, Star Wars has been pushing forward a little bit, a bit, as far as like expanding the universe. But I do think a lot of things that they still haven't quite been willing to switch things up, like such as like a traditional lightsaber and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for that. Like I think seeing some variations of it and evolutions of it will be really cool.
Yep. Yeah, Ahsoka had a couple of like new ideas as well. It had more of the sort of samurai sword type lightsaber, and then they had one with like a curved handle as well. So cool to see
Oh,
some
that's
interesting
sick.
takes. Yes, it was a very cool one.
That sounds sick. Gosh.
Um, but with the sort of changing of how Star Wars is going, there's been a bit of sort of fake outrage on online, much like we see with wrestling and a bit of everything.
Of course.
The biggest one I saw was people complaining about in that opening episode where Osha's outside fixing the space shuttle and there's a
Mhm.
fire. People are like, oh, there's no fire in space. And I'm like, come on now. There's been fire in Star Wars forever.
I also think of just what is like just these are still planets, if that makes sense. Like, like just because it's not Earth doesn't mean that like elements don't exist.
Mhm.
And also like all you need for a fire is what? Oxygen.
I think that's where people are complaining. They're like, she's in space on a space shuttle. There's no oxygen. I'm like, yeah, but go back to like episode 6 and the Death Star explodes and there's fire everywhere. It's like,
Yeah, so it's oxygen, heat, and fuel. That's what it is. And also, it's one of the things is like a shuttle can have all of these things, but also, too, guys, like, do you people just hate fun?
yeah,
Seriously, this is fiction. Like I know, like we love it. Like I wish that I lived in the Star Wars universe. I wish I lived in all these universes. Like the one we are in is kind of sucks, guys. I get it. But at the end of the day, I think like that just goes back to what we were saying. I'm just like there's discourse and everything and just about every major fandom property right now of how things are being like consumed. And I think especially for fictional properties, whether it's wrestling, whether it's like Doctor Who, it's just like everybody is so stuck on these rules. But guess what? The number one rule of fiction is that there are no rules.
hmm,
None of this is real.
exactly.
And we're not, how are we say, like I said, same thing like I was saying about like just Star Wars universe. A lot of people are married to what they've seen before. And it's just like we can't grow without, you know, we can't grow without doing something different. We can't grow without new ideas. Like, the Skywalker saga was great. It was a cultural moment. Like nothing will ever be able to be like it. But I think that's also the point. Nothing will ever be able to be like it. So let's just do something different. Like, let's just do something different. And also it's really not that deep. Like it's not that deep. I'm just until you just said that just now, I didn't think twice about it. I
Either did
didn't
I
think
until I saw the post. I was like, what are we talking about? Who cares?
I, and it's always the stuff like it's always the dumbest discourse that floats to the top. It's never the stuff that actually needs to be discussed. The stuff that actually needs it's the dumbest discourse to the point to where I feel like, and don't get me wrong, I say this as a podcaster, and even like we're on a podcast right now, like talking about this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that so many of people now, everybody feels like they have to be an expert. And I think that somewhere along the way, we've decided to look at everything that we consume or once consumed for pleasure through this hypercritical lens. Like everybody wants to be a critic now. And nobody wants to be a fan anymore because we've like, oh my gosh, you stupid Mark, you fangirl, you nerd. And it's just like, yes, I am those things. Like, I would rather be those things than be miserable. Like this is supposed to be fun. Star Wars is escapism.
Hmm.
That's what it's supposed to be. It's escapism. You guys are ruining, you're killing the vibes.
Yep. That's always been my approach to any of my sort of reviewing and criticism of stuff. I always try to find the joy and the fun in things. And
Yeah.
then obviously there are going to be things that pull that back, but most of the time I'm trying to point out this is the good stuff. There were these couple of things that weren't great, but this is the stuff you need to pay attention to.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, that's even like that's my entire lens with wrestling of just I only watch things that I like. I don't watch companies that I don't like.
Hmm.
And I think it's not just for not like me trying to make a stance or anything. I don't like the person that I turn into when I hate watch things. I don't like that person. Like I think that I'm so much of a better person when I'm talking about things that I actually like. I think that I'm a better content creator. I think that people are what I think more. I think, you know, there's the saying that you attract more flies with honey than vinegar.
Mhm.
You know, and I think that like doing things, and that's not saying that you can't critique things that you like, but I think when you go into things, like when you like sit down in front of a show or rest, whatever, right, and you're just like, you come in with this posture of I hate this, and so you're just going to find things to hate. Oh, that's a terrible way to live.
Mhm.
That's a terrible way to live. Like, you know, there's so many, especially when there's so many other things worth doing. And so I completely agree of just at the end of the day, it's really, that's what content creation, in my opinion, is supposed to be about, of loving something to the point where, to where like I need to tell other people about it. Like
Yeah.
I love this thing so much where I'm just not going to shut up about this, and now everybody else has to listen to me talk about it. And if you're not coming from it from that perspective, like, I mean, I don't know, especially when very few people are actually getting paid to be critics, and just like being a hater for free is crazy.
Yeah, no.
In this economy, oh my God.
When there's so many options, like there's all of the
So
streaming
many.
platforms, all of the different forms of wrestling, like just find something you like.
Absolutely. Like there's literally something for everybody. Like there's something for everybody. I think, and I think that's so cool. Like even now, like even if you don't like traditional, like, you know, what's on television or things like that, the indie stream, everybody streams now. You know, like everybody has some type of streaming service or something, or you can find, even if you don't even like what's on TV now, there are subscriptions you can subscribe. You can find whole libraries for promotions. You can watch all the wrestling that happened before 2000 if you want to. If that's your thing, you could do that. Everything is so accessible now. We're not in a tape trading era anymore to where you have to get on message boards and wait for somebody to send you a DVD, you know, and let it take months, or not even a DVD, or like an actual cassette tape. Like we're not in those days anymore. Everything is literally at our fingertips. There's something for everybody. Even the same thing with Star Wars. If you don't like this current stuff, guess what? There is a streaming platform. You can actually rewatch the Skywalker saga all the time until you're blue in the face.
Mhm.
You can
Yep.
literally rewatch every single movie over and over and over again
Yeah,
until you're
like
blue in the face.
there's the movies, there's the Disney Plus live action shows, the animated series, that Star Wars Visions show. If you like anime, that's very cool as
Yeah,
well. Like you'll find something.
so much media. They've released books. They've released like there's
There's
theme
games.
parks, guys. There's actual theme parks at this point. Like my personal favorite thing that but so I have this thing that whenever I go to a major city that has one, I go to wax museums. So I love going to Madame Tussauds. So I've been to what I think I've been to three of them, and two of them I've been to the one in London and I've been to the one in Berlin, and they both have the biggest Star Wars exhibits. It's fantastic. Like it's crazy. It's like so lifelike. So it has like the one of just Darth Vader sitting up right after he cuts off Luke's arm, and
Mhm.
so he's hanging off the thing. Then they have like it's almost like you're in of Obi-Wan and Anakin having like that last, you know, fight, or um Darth Maul like fighting, and then there's like Leia with the chain around her neck from Jabba the Hutt, and then there's like you could sit with Chewie in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. You can just do that. Like literally, you can do that. There's so many different things. Like Star Wars is probably the most. I would say one of the, if not, yeah, I would say just about the most accessible title probably in the world, as far as just being world renowned. Everybody has some sort of shade. You can go to your random grocery store or like big electronic store or something, they have something Star Wars related. Like there's just no excuse to be unhappy. I don't know, like there's no excuse to be unhappy.
I think we just found another reason that you need to come to Australia. Madame Tussauds in
Listen,
Sydney.
I want to go so bad. It's just like I thought that flying to Japan was expensive, but that Australia flight is crazy. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of crazy.
It's rough.
But I am just insane enough to do it. Like, I went to England and I went to Japan both last year, just for the hell of it. And, I think honestly, if AEW ever runs a show in Australia, I promise you, I will come.
Oh, please.
I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you that much right now.
I've been pushing for an AEW tour since they started. Like, come on.
I think that they'll do it. I think that we're going to see them go internationally a lot more after All In this year. I think a lot more is going to be announced. I believe that. I think that they're in a space, and I think also like they have people on the roster who are going to push for it in the right way. And also too of just listen in New Japan. If Tamashi gets their stuff together, I would come. Like if they
that's another.
That's a whole nother. Listen, me and our good friend Josh, we spent about an hour on my podcast, like just talking about that whole situation. But seriously, if New Japan ever put a legitimate card down there, I would, like I said, I move for good wrestling. Like I am willing to go the distance for some great wrestling. And like I've covered wrestling in 4 countries. I would love to make it 5. That would be 5 countries, 4 continents. So I would love to do it.
Very nice. What else did I have written down for the show? I loved they did a nice like reworking of some famous quotes in here with they reworked learn from the past or be doomed to repeat it, which I think sort of plays into that idea of Star Wars needs to evolve, where
Yeah, absolutely.
They changed it into memories are lessons and we must meditate on the past or repeat them. I thought that was very cool idea of, yeah, Star Wars needs to evolve. Let's look at what we've done and move forward. And on that front, I loved how this show continues that idea of the good relative versus the evil relative. So in the past, we've had Luke Skywalker versus Anakin Skywalker, Ben Solo versus Han Solo, and now we're getting sort of Osha versus May, but they've twisted that too, where they thought each other was dead, but then they have the quote, "We were always one, but born as two," which makes me think at some point during this season, their true powers are only going to be realized once they're working together to defeat a bigger, badder enemy.
Absolutely. And I think also it's really cool too, of just, you can tell they both genuinely think they're right. And I think that that's always the best thing part of the characters. Like I think of when people are genuinely convinced by their own actions. And I think just the concept of the Acolyte of just of May continuing to try to kill and doing it like without a weapon. And honestly, I still don't think that she's quite done it yet. Even though she handed over the poison, I'm not sure if that 100% counts as killing without a weapon. Does that mean that she's actually the Acolyte now? I don't know, but
I mean, I don't really see that as she killed him too. I think he
made the
realized,
decision.
Yeah, she's finally found him. Now he's going to pay for his past sins type thing. Like I feel like that's why he was in that meditative state. He was trying to come to grips with his own history.
Absolutely. Very much so Luke, of just like, okay, going on this last hurrah because he knew he was about to like fade away into like the sunset, or whatever. So just like, oh yeah, I was waiting on this. So yeah, I think so. It's going to be very interesting to see like May try all these different things. Like, like you said, 2 are already down. So like, what is she going to try? How is she going to actually, if she does actually, kill without a weapon, So I think this whole concept of the Acolyte is just fascinating.
And I love the way they introduced that too, like in the opening sequence where, what's her name? Carrie Ann Moss, who was heavily featured in the advertising, but then is killed off in like 5 minutes, which was a bit strange. But I love how they introduced the idea of the Acolyte not using a weapon. They sort of suggest that it's because she does that knowing that the Jedi won't attack a civilian unless a weapon is drawn. So it's like gives her that little bit of an advantage in the fight.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely a competitive edge there. Also, yeah, I feel like she got killed, like she got Ned Stark.
Mhm. Yep.
Very much Ned Stark.
Yeah, it was very funny because she's in all the ads, all of the
Mhm.
promotional material, and then she was gone straight away. So whether she's gonna have some sort of like, is there gonna be like a flashback and
Yeah.
have her come back later in the series or not?
You know what? I do think that there is going to be a flashback though, because I think like just because of the nature of the show, especially like with May and Osha being sisters, I think that there's going to have to be a lot of flashbacks in this show, at least a substantial amount. So
Yeah, I think we need to go back to see what that fire was, what has caused this
absolutely,
trauma for those two characters.
absolutely. So I do think it's a really good possibility. Like we might get a lot of flashback action from her.
Uh, the other note I had, what did you think of a classic Star Wars trope, the new droid, the Pip droid?
Listen, okay, so the pocketbook droid, that's what I call it. I don't know yet. It was interesting. I feel like the first thing that I thought, right, is that I was like, this is going to sell them so much merchandise. But I don't think that that's the proper reaction. Like, I shouldn't, my first action shouldn't have been like, yay, capitalism is going to win.
I had
Like,
the
that
same
should
reaction.
not,
I wrote down very obviously designed to sell toys,
I
particularly
mean,
because
same
it's
thing,
so modular, so you can sell extra add-ons to it.
that's the same way I felt like when the Mandalorian started. Like, the first time that I saw the child, I said, oh, this is going to fly off the shelves. Like this is going to fly off the shelves. And I think that that's one thing is that's I feel like that is actually the new droid of course is a classic Star Wars trope, but I feel like modern Star Wars trope is like what is this new character that we're going to introduce that is going to be like our merchandising gold mine? And
Mhm.
as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, this is I can see this is going to be in all of the nerd stores, and this is going to be a Lego set by Christmas. It's going to be a Lego set by Christmas, which is fine. Listen, I have Star Wars Lego sets, and I'm still saving for my big Death Star that I'm going to get one day. Either
The
going to get a
Millennium
Death Star.
Falcon's a big one too. Have you got the Millennium Falcon Lego set? That's like
No, I was just about
$800 or
to
something.
say. I want a Death Star or a Millennium Falcon. I'd probably get the Millennium Falcon first. I'm a big Millennium Falcon person. Like I have like a million Millennium Falcon like it's on my keyring, it's on my wall. Like I actually have like the also in another place on my wall. So I have like the blueprints of like the ship. And so I have them framed.
Oh,
So
very cool.
yeah, so it's kind of like my how do I say it? It's like my adult cop out of having Star Wars memorabilia on the walls rather than just like outright posters like I had in college. So this is kind of like my sophisticated of just like framed blueprints and stuff. That's my sophistication.
It's
But yeah,
art. It's not just
it's
Star Wars
art
posters.
exactly. It's art. So that's my cop out now. But yeah, I don't know. I would like to see what the droid. I don't know how to feel about it yet. Right now, it kind of feels like I said, it's capitalism at its finest. But we'll see. We'll see. But I do think it's cute. It's cute.
Have you been to Galaxy's Edge in Orlando?
No,
Oh, it's very cool.
I,
If you're a Millennium Falcon person, you need to
I'm
head there.
so sad. But listen, I haven't been to. I've been to Disney World once in my life, and I've only gotten to go when I was in elementary school. So I was like in like first grade. So this is before they built all the Star Wars exhibits. So like, yeah, man, I'm trying to go. Like, and I just feel like also, they're building that. Where's that big Star Wars world that they're building? Is that it's? I think it's in Asia. I think it's in Asia. Like they're somewhere in Asia or Europe, they're doing like an actual Star Wars, I think, full theme park that they're building. I don't know. Like I do need to like brush up. And they've been doing that Star Wars big Star Wars day and they've been rotating it around the world. I think
Mhm.
last year it was in what was it in Beijing or not Beijing? It was somewhere really far. I know that, but
Yep. Yeah,
I
well,
do want to go.
World's End, AEW World's End, Orlando this year. It's a good excuse to head down and tack on Star Wars Land,
I know.
Galaxy's Edge.
You know, So last year I went to Japan, and so I missed World's End. So I wasn't in the country for it. But this year I will say I kind of do want to go back to Japan, but I don't think I have Japan money. I don't have. I know. No, I don't have Japan money. But like being able to go for Wrestle Kingdom Week is kind of addictive, and if I could do it every year for the rest of my life, I want to. So, but yeah, I think that if it happened this year, if I get to Galaxy's Edge, it'll probably be around World's End. Not gonna lie, and at least the weather would be nice too, because like Florida has nice weather.
Yeah.
Especially in December. So hey, there's definitely some potential there.
Yep. Two other last couple of things I had written down. Yord Fandar wields a yellow lightsaber. I thought that was a very cool dynamic because they're relatively rare in Star Wars live action to
Yes,
have
very rare. Yeah.
a yellow lightsaber. Tends to indicate a balance between the light and dark side of the Force because blending red and green gives you yellow. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to see how his character evolves because he does have moments where he's very good. He seems like he's following the Jedi way very closely, but then he has moments where he's like very angry and aggressive, and you're like, oh, hang on, there might be a bit more to this character, which is something I think
Absolutely.
Star Wars has done a lot recently with playing with the gray of characters. They're not so binary, yes or good or bad.
I think also too, I think that that's where a lot of titles I hope that they go, where I hope they go. Even like in wrestling, right? Like I think I'm not saying that we've evolved past the traditional heel and face dynamic, but that at the end of the day, people are complicated.
Mhm.
People are complicated and complex, and people can be different in different situations. Like you never know how far somebody's willing to go. It's like somebody can be an absolute angel until like that one button is pushed, and then all hell breaks loose. Talking to you, Hangman Page. I think of Hangman like he's like my favorite complex character archetype. Seriously, like I think that like his character dynamic is perfect in the sense of like he's not any one thing, and so I love Star Wars adopting that because I kind of felt like in the early series the conflict was always kind of felt surface level. Like I never felt like Luke was ever going to be fully evil, like he was always a good guy. Like I think that it's nice to like, I'm not going to say like, it's nice to not know, of go on that character journey with people and like watch them like, figure themselves out, watch them grow, watch them change, watch them make bad decisions, like, watch them make good decisions. So I'm here for it. I think that, like I said, like a fiction can be whatever you want it to be. So what's the point of making one dimensional characters?
And especially because of where this is set in the timeline, we know that eventually this is a time of peace according to the
Yeah.
law. And then we end up getting to the Star Wars traditional era where there is this galactic empire and wars breaking out all over the place. So it makes me think, does Osha sort of lean more dark side, or does she bring May into the middle and then they kill something that then sets off this domino effect of ultimately leading to chaos throughout the universe?
Yeah, because I think like we don't have I think especially with OSHA, I think with both of them, they seem pretty young too. So I don't think anybody seems 100% bad
Mhm.
yet, but I also don't think anybody seems 100% good yet either. Like I don't think we just don't know them well enough to know like are you like 100% a bad person? Like I said, because both of them genuinely they believe in their causes. Does that make sense? Or they believe in, or like even when Osha says like she left the Jedi movement and it was the hardest thing that she's ever had to do.
Mhm.
And I don't think like we still don't really 100% know what that, all of that entails.
Yeah, what
And
what
so
was the tipping point to push her away?
exactly. So I think like, I love question marks. I love legitimate question marks, and I hope that they remain this suspenseful like for the rest of the series because they better, especially with 8 episodes. Like you have no reason not to. Like,
Yeah. And then the last sort of question marks that are left open for this is with the setting. It's in the prequel era, but there are several sort of Jedi Council members that are potentially alive in this series. Do we get cameos from Yoda, Yardle, or Yarl Poof? As yet, none of them
You,
have appeared.
you know, I would have probably said no, but hey, the Jedi Wookiee has me inspired. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if we get like a glimpse at a younger Yoda.
At least a glimpse, like I feel like I'm still enough of a mark to where I will say cheap cameos still pop me. They do.
Yeah, I don't
They
need
do.
them to be like a central character in the story, but I think like at some point in the sort of Jedi Temple, if someone has a conversation with Yoda, I think that's totally fun.
And I think it also keeps it connected. And I think that that's one of the cool things, at least originally, about like the MCU. Especially like I would say everything before Endgame of just, sometimes you don't need somebody to be a main character, but just seeing, you know, the people interact with each other like from one film to another film, it makes it all feel connected. And I think that that's something that I would say like a lot of the movies projects post Endgame have lacked, of just that sense of connective tissue of just like these random kids. A lot of things feel like they're living in their own world. Like I'll say this all day, like Eternals, I still have no idea where it fits in like the general Marvel universe, and I'm not sure they do either.
No, there's that giant like stone creature thing that all of the other movies have never referenced.
And I think also too of just like now, if you think about you think about Eternals, you think about What If, you think about the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and then you think about Loki. So you have the Time Variance Authority, you have the Eternals, you have the Watcher, you have all of the you have like the
Even
what
Shang-Chi like felt totally separate and detached.
exactly. So you have literally all of these like supposed to be these immortal overarching beings who like watch over same thing what's the other guy from the one who waits, what's his name, the
I
in
know who,
Loki.
yeah, I know who you're
Yeah,
talking
you know
about.
what I'm talking about. Yeah. Kang.
That's it.
Kang.
Yep.
So you have all these overarching watching characters and they're supposed to all be immortal and so powerful. But where were
Yeah, where were they?
and also where how do they intersect? So there's a Watcher, cool, and then there's like these Eternals, okay, and then there's like this Time Variance Authority, and then there's this multiverse, and then like I'm all for a multiverse, I am, but I do think that we've lost the plot in a lot of ways of just what's important and what's not at this point. And I think and also like all these things exist in silos, and so I don't think that there's no hierarchy of like, okay, who's at the top, what's what, like, and I think like originally we had that of sense like, low key was kind of like little boss, like that's little boss. But Thanos was always big boss, like
Yep.
this is always where we're heading. Like, Thanos is always the end. Like this is our end goal. And like, everybody else, all the villains in between that happen between that, like even with Ultron, like it's very much so to get us here. I don't know where the end. Even same thing with like Secret Wars. Like if you watch Secret Invasion, and then there's the Skrulls, and it feels like half the MCU heroes don't even know the Skrulls exist. So it's just like
Yeah, it's
I don't
chaos at the
know.
moment.
Chaos.
I think they were like, oh yeah, cool, we can do a multiverse, and they've just taken full advantage of that and just gone, we can do anything wacky, and then be like, oh, it's in a separate universe. Like, okay,
And
no,
then get a
but there needs
multiverse,
to be some connection here.
and we still don't have X-Men.
Yeah,
We're in a
I think
multiverse
we're
and we
getting them next month though.
I mean, yeah, X-Men. Like there's still so many characters that still need to be introduced. Like we don't have X-Men, we don't have Fantastic Four. Like we still haven't introduced, like the people from like the Netflix series. And so like we still have to introduce like the Defenders, who I think should be a part, like of the MCU. And like my favorite my favorite show that got canceled after 2 seasons that I will always stand up for is Cloak and Dagger, because I think that like those are two of my favorite heroes ever. And so, yeah, I don't know. I could talk about the MCU all day of being confused. I was like, dude, like, and I love What If. I think like it's a fascinating concept. I need to finish the second season, but it's also at this point I'm just like, guys, where are we going? I don't think they know.
Yeah.
I just don't think they know it themselves.
So yeah, I don't know. Marvel's a whole separate story. Star Wars is a bit chaotic itself, but
Absolutely, that mouse owns it all. So we're gonna
hopefully Acolyte, Andor, and even Ahsoka a little bit sort of are all sort of finally wrapping things up and getting us moving in a direction to go into. I'm pretty sure we've got another set of 3 movies in the works. So hopefully we're heading into a clear direction here.
Hope so. Yeah, you know what? Like I said, I'm here for the long run. Like, I complain, but I'm a stand, so I'll be here when they figure it out.
And even with the chaos, I think this show has proven that people will tune in for cool Star Wars stuff, because in the first day they had in the first day they had 4.8 million views, the biggest Disney Plus season premiere of 2024.
Fantastic. Like, and I think, and you got to think this is a year where that's not no small feat, because X-Men 97 did great numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so to like knock that out of the water, like that's a huge, I mean, also like, Doctor Who just came out. Like there's some really great, strong titles that have come up on Disney Plus in 2024. And so for like, especially a queer woman of color led project to like, do those type of numbers right now is like revolutionary, truly trailblazing.
Yep. So then as we close out, in terms of a rating for the first 2 episodes of Star Wars The Acolyte, what would you give this one out of 5?
I'm gonna go 4. I'll go 4.
Yep. Yeah, I gave this a 3. Really solid opening. Intrigued to see where it goes. Like I mentioned, a couple of like issues with some CGI elements, the wooden line delivery, but then I learned and forgave that. But interested to see where it goes, and just hope to God they can keep me hooked and there isn't that weird lull in the middle of the season.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too. But hey, like I said, as long as I'm optimistic, I'm actually optimistic. I think sometimes I don't have that optimism, so this is a good sign. So I'm going to be optimistic about it.
Alrighty, thank you for joining me on today's episode, Lyric. Why don't you go ahead and plug your shows and let everyone know where the best place is to keep up to date with all of your work?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. This was a blast. I love getting to talk about non-wrestling things. If you're on Twitter, wrestling Twitter is a cesspool. So it's nice to talk about things without feeling like I'm gonna get murdered at the stake afterwards. But you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lyric Wrestling. You can subscribe to my YouTube, just my first and last name, Lyric Swinton. That has all my interviews, all the podcasts, and that'll have the Maps and Graps podcast. And if you look at the link in my Twitter bio, you can find all of my articles. I haven't had as much time recently due to some personal matters, but hopefully that changes soon to podcasts. I'm determined this weekend to record something and write something. So at least something is going to come out. I don't know quite what it is yet, but I'm determined to get something out soon. But thank you for having me. This is really fun.
My pleasure. All right. And thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. And you can follow me on social media at Jamie Media and at Pario Magazine. The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.